Hey, good day to you. This is Todd. I am a regular dude walking in the Word. We are going through Numbers here today, and it's entitled today, Misrepresenting God. I'm going to get into further what the title means here after we read here today. This is taken today from Numbers chapter 20, and we're going to be reading verses 1 through 13. In this passage here, you're going to see first Miriam dies. And we're going to kind of move through that pretty quick. But then also Moses does something, and his response is not what God wanted. Okay, and you can see as he responds to the people, he's really misrepresenting God. And God takes that very seriously and is upset about that, really. So let's read here today. This is Numbers chapter 20, verses 1 through 13. It says this: in the first month of the whole Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed in Kadesh. There Miriam died and was buried. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. They quarreled with Moses and said, "If only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into the wilderness, that we and our livestock should die here? Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain or figs or grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Okay, this is really just a repeat of what's been happening. You know, they get to a place and they complain, and then they remark how great it was in Egypt, always forgetting that they were slaves in Egypt. Okay, a major thing, but they always leave that out, that they were slaves in Egypt. And they are going through the desert here. So obviously it says, "Oh, we have no grain or figs or grapevines or pomegranates. And there's no water for us to drink." God was providing everything. He had been providing manna here before, and so they didn't need anything else. But here they are complaining. And when you don't have water, that makes you kind of go really berserk. You kind of get desperate, and that's what these people were doing. Verse 6, Moses and Aaron went from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell face down, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord said to Moses, "Take the staff, you and your brother Aaron, and gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out water, and you will bring water out of the rock for the community so that they and their livestock can drink." I want you to notice here, Moses is acting in the right way to start off with here. And it takes us to the Lord, and which we should do whenever we get into a bad situation, even good situations. We should take it to the Lord. And that's what they did. They started out that way, and then you can see God gave them clear instructions. Speak to the rock, and then the water will come out. Okay, but let's see what happens here, verse 9. So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence, just as he had commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring the water from this rock?" Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. Okay, I just read right there, like almost opposite what God told them to do. God told Moses to speak to the rock, and he sure did tell him to, tell them they're a bunch of rebels and so forth, and then going to hit the rock. Okay, so Moses doesn't follow God's commands exactly here. Kind of deviates on his own. Okay, taking his own liberties, you might say. We get into trouble when we start taking liberties on our own. Like, oh yeah, I know it's wrong for me to be sleeping with my girlfriend, but I don't think God will mind. And we take those liberties on our own. Again, you're going to get in trouble when you start acting like that and doing those things. Verse 12, "But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. These were the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and where he was proved holy among them." Now, as I read that, you're thinking, wow, Moses got off track a little bit here, and but he's no longer allowed to enter the promised land because of this. Isn't that kind of harsh? No, it's not harsh. It's what God commanded. The problem here is not just the disobedience and kind of taking your own liberties, and I talked about taking liberties and where that gets you already. But the problem here was they were misrepresenting God. Okay, this was a picture of Christ, and this was all laid out by God, and this was a picture of Christ, and kind of that free gift of salvation, and not having the law, and that free gift of salvation that we just need to speak to the rock, which is Jesus. And so Moses is really messing up that picture of God and misrepresenting God and what he said here. And so that's why God didn't allow them in, because they were misrepresenting God. Now, the thing today is you can go, oh, yeah, I'm not, I don't do that. I don't misrepresent God. Well, hopefully you don't do that. But we're guilty of misrepresenting God on several fronts. We misrepresent God in the first way by allowing sin that God would never allow, okay? And we go, oh, you know what? It's okay to do that. It's okay to sleep with your girlfriend before you're married, or to have another girlfriend after you're married, okay? We allow that sin, or homosexuality, or anything like that. We're allowing that sin to happen. And you're misrepresenting God. God never allowed that to happen. And so that's where you get into trouble, okay? And then the other way to do it is to be all legalistic about God too, and misrepresent him the other way. Like, if you step out of line, God's going to, strike you dead and hates you and doesn't allow forgiveness. Well, all of us have sinned, okay? And so God is a God that forgives our sin. And so we misrepresent God when we're mean and nasty to people, and thinking God has called us to be mean and nasty to these people, and to scream and yell at them about their sin. When God is a loving God, and God is a forgiving God. That's a big thing we have to remember. So my encouragement for you today is this: don't be one to misrepresent God. And you're asking yourself, how can I not misrepresent God? Well, the big way is to listen to God. If Moses here would have simply listened to God and did what he said, then everything would have been fine. But Moses kind of added his own stuff to it, and hit the rock and yelled at them and called them rebels and so forth, going way beyond what God said. And when he didn't follow God's instructions totally, that's where he got into trouble. That's where he was misrepresenting God. Okay? For us to know the will of God, we need to be in the Bible. We need to be reading the Bible. We need to read the Bible on our own, spending time in prayer, but then also receiving good teaching too. But the most important part is reading the Bible on my own. If I'm not reading the Bible on my own, then then you start making your own things up, okay? And you will run, I guarantee you this, you will run into people, and they don't read the Bible, but they've heard someone talk about the Bible, and then right away when you're talking to them, they give you some goofy answer about stuff, and you're like, the Bible doesn't say that. And they might pick one verse out, and you're like, have you ever read the whole Bible? And you're like, well, no, I haven't read the whole Bible. I'm familiar with a few verses, okay? And so then you're misrepresenting God. So if you don't want to misrepresent God, get in the Word, all right, and study the Word. All right? Hey, thanks for watching. I'm a regular dude walking in the Word, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we continue our journey walking through the book of Numbers. Lord's blessing. I'll see you then.